So AI is pretty much everywhere, right? But how do we make sure it's being developed and used responsibly? Well, the world finally has an answer. ISO 42001. It's the first ever international standard for managing artificial intelligence.
What you're looking at right here, this is basically the new global rulebook for AI. In this explainer, drawing from a fantastic lesson by Saurav Malik, we're going to break down exactly what's inside this standard and what it really means for any organization that's using AI.
Okay, so here's how we're going to tackle this. We'll walk through it using a really simple but super powerful framework. Plan, do, check, and act. First up, we'll talk about why we even need to manage AI. Then we'll get into how to build the system, actually run it, check up on it, and then make it better and better. And stick around, because we'll finish by opening up the toolkit that comes with it.
So let's start with the big question. Why bother? As organizations are racing to adopt AI, they have a real duty to do it responsibly. This isn't just about cool new tech. It's about managing its impact on real people, your customers, your employees, and pretty much all of society.
And that leads us to the heart of the problem. How in the world do you build trust in something that can feel like a black box? Something that learns and changes all by itself? Yeah, it's definitely not like managing your typical software. You need a whole different playbook. The answer, according to ISO 42001, is to build a management system. Just think of it like a dedicated framework, a set of processes and policies that are designed specifically to govern how your organization handles AI, making sure everything is done consistently and responsibly. Now, the real engine behind this management system is the plan, do, check, act cycle. It's a continuous loop that's all about improvement. Imagine you're the captain of a ship. First, you plan your course on a map. Then you do the sailing. Next, you check your instruments and the stars to see where you are. And finally, you act by adjusting the rudder to get back on course. That's exactly how this standard is built. So let's jump into that first phase, the plan. This is the foundation, and it covers chapters 4 through 7 of the standard. This is all about setting up your AI management system the right way from the very beginning. Chapter 4 is all about understanding your surroundings. What are the global tech trends? What do the laws require? What do your customers and partners actually expect from you? Answering these big questions helps you draw the lines and define the scope of your AI management system.
Next up, Chapter 5, and this one is huge. It puts the responsibility right where it belongs, at the very top. It says leadership has to be committed. They're the ones responsible for creating the official AI policy and making sure everyone knows who's in charge of what. It's a clear signal that AI governance is a core business function, not just some side project for the IT department.
Okay, Chapter 6 is where the real strategic thinking kicks in. This is where you proactively look into the future. You have to ask, what could go wrong with our AI, and how do we prevent it? What are the potential impacts on people? And based on all that, what are we actually trying to achieve here? You've got to set clear, measurable goals. And this brings us to one of the most critical ideas in the whole standard, the AI System Impact Assessment. Now, this goes way beyond just looking for technical bugs. This is about evaluating the potential human risk. It forces an organization to stop and ask, what are the real-world consequences of our AI on individuals, on groups, on society? It's all about looking before you leap. And to wrap up the plan stage, Chapter 7 covers support. Because, let's be honest, a brilliant plan is completely useless without the right resources. This means having the budget, making sure your teams have the right skills and training, and keeping clear communication channels and really solid documentation. These are the pillars holding the whole thing up. Okay, our foundation is planned. Now it's time to fire up the engines. We're moving on to the do phase, which is all covered in Chapter 8. This is where the plan actually gets put into action. Chapter 8 is really the day-to-day work. It's about running the processes you so carefully designed back in the planning phase. This is where you're managing the AI system's lifecycle, controlling any changes, and constantly keeping an eye out for any unintended consequences before they spiral into big problems.
So, the system is up and running, but is it actually working? How do we even know? Well, that brings us to the check phase, which is Chapter 9. You can think of this as report card time, where we evaluate how we're doing. You can't manage what you don't measure, right? Chapter 9 requires organizations to systematically check their performance. It all starts with monitoring and analyzing the data, which leads to internal audits to make sure you're following the rules, and it all comes together in a formal management review to see if the whole system is even effective.
Now, it's really important to see the difference between these two checks. An internal audit is like a detailed inspection under the hood. It's asking, are we actually following the procedures we wrote down? It's all about compliance. A management review, on the other hand, is the high-level strategic view. It asks, is this entire system actually working? Is it helping us reach our goals?
And that brings us to the final piece of the cycle. This is where we take everything we learned from our check phase and use it to get better. This is the act phase, covered in Chapter 10, and it's all about improvement. This is where the loop closes and starts all over again. When an audit finds something that's off, what the standard calls a non-conformity, you don't just put a Band-Aid on it, you dig deep, find the root cause, and take corrective action to make sure it doesn't happen again. The goal here isn't perfection, it's continual improvement.
So, that's the whole framework. Plan, do, check, act. But here's the really cool part. The standard doesn't just give you the theory and send you on your way. It actually gives you the tools. And that's where the annexes come in. Think of them as the practical, hands-on part of the rulebook.
And this is where things get super practical. Annex A is basically a big catalog of specific controls, which are concrete actions you can take to meet your goals. So for example, to have clear policies, a control is to actually document that policy. To manage your data well, a control is to document where it all comes from. It's like a ready-made checklist to help you turn those high-level ideas into real-world actions. All right, so let's boil this all down. What are the key things to remember? First, ISO 42001 is the new global rulebook for managing AI responsibly. Second, its backbone is that plan, do, check, act cycle, which is all about getting better over time. Third, you absolutely need commitment from leadership and a serious focus on assessing risk. And finally, the annexes give you a practical toolkit to actually get the job done. And all of this really leads to one final thought. This standard isn't some idea for the future. It's here right now. As AI gets woven deeper into every part of our lives and businesses, the question isn't if you'll need to manage it, but how. So, are you ready?